Hello friends, welcome to One Academy. I am Somesh Upadhyay IAS, 34 ranked in UPSC, and this particular lecture is part of the International Relations series for UPSC Mains GS Paper 2. And we are going to discuss today a very important topic, very hot topic currently, because there is flare up in the western sector of India-China border, in especially Galwan Valley and Pangong Tso Lake. So we are going to discuss India-China relations to understand the entire history of India-China relations. We will try to understand the mindset of China, their ambition regarding their position in geopolitics, and the overall perspective of how the dynamics plays out in the Indo-Pacific region, where both India and China are rising superpowers. So let's start with the history of India-China relations. First was, of course, phase of friendship, and this started when in 1948 China became a self-ruled country, where Kuomintang party became the ruler of China in 1948. In the same year, both the countries established diplomatic relations, which means they set up embassies in each other's territory and sent diplomats and ambassadors. So, but 1 year later, China came under control of Communist Party of China, which is still now in control, and India, in a great show of camaraderie and friendship, became the first non-communist country to recognize Chinese Communist Party as the true ruler of China. Jawaharlal Nehru was Prime Minister of India at that time. He made multiple visits to China in between 1954 and 57, and he gave the slogan of Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai, means India and China are brothers. So a big public sentiment spread around that India and China are friends and there's no enmity between them, although there were some border issues which had started to creep up by this time. And still, because Zhou Enlai of China and Nehru of India, they kept visiting frequently each other's country, and apparently the friendship looked to be growing between the two countries. And then in 1954, India-Tibet Agreement on Trade and Intercourse happened. This is very remarkable because also you may have known when we discussed the Panchshil of Nehru, this particular agreement is also called Panchshil Agreement. The India-Tibet Agreement on Trade was also remarkable in the sense that India virtually agreed that an autonomous Tibet is part of the People's Republic of China. So China's suzerainty or control over Tibet was officially recognized, which many consider as a blunder done by Nehru. Even Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was staunchly against it, and there are certain eminent personalities at that time who were against recognition of China's suzerainty over Tibet, because they realized that this will now create a tension at a border which is right now at peace. However, this was signed, and then India also removed all its assets like telegraphs and posts and everything from Tibet, virtually ending its all connections with Tibet and recognizing China's sovereignty over the land. Right, so India accepted autonomous Tibet region to be part of People's Republic of China. So this was the phase of friendship, and both the countries believed that they could, by achieving peace at the border, they could focus on their internal development. However, seemingly India gave more concessions than China gave concessions to India. China only bought time to consolidate and then attack India when phase of confrontation starts. In 1959, Zhou Enlai, he, for the first time, initially in 1950s, they did not create an issue about McMahon Line. McMahon Line is, again, friends, the line that demarcates border between Arunachal Pradesh and Tibet, and it also demarcates border between Myanmar and China. In 1959, Zhou Enlai said in a letter to Jawaharlal Nehru that this McMahon Line we do not agree to, because it was imposed by imperialist British power over Tibet, and China was not part of that discussion. And that's where differences started to emerge between India and China. And then they started road construction through the Ladakh region to send their forces, and their motive, their sinister motive became very clear. Although due to misreading by K.M. Panikkar, who was then ambassador in China, and Nehru's blind trust on K.M. Panikkar's views, India did not react to this build-up and were taken by surprise when 1962 attack happened. In the meantime, in 1959, Tibetans influx started to happen, and Dalai Lama fled Tibet, and they came to Dharamshala in Himachal Pradesh. So China, of course, did not want Dalai Lama to be protected by India. They also claimed Aksai Chin because Dalai Lama was born in Tawang, so that way that Buddhist claim, because Tibet is a Buddhist state, not that China bothers about it, but since it helps them to make claim over Tawang and Arunachal Pradesh, they do it. So in 1962, over all these differences, they suddenly attacked India and enter in to deep into Ladakh, almost 20 kilometers inside the current LAC, and also reached to the valley region of Assam, almost controlled entire Arunachal Pradesh in 1962. And then they unilaterally declared victory. China then pulled out and went back behind the McMahon line, and they also withdrew 20 kilometers beyond their forward line in the western sector in Aksai Chin. So the current LAC is somewhere around that withdrawal line. Then after this shock of 1962, cold relations, the relation of mistrust started. India stopped because it had been so generous earlier, and then it was betrayed. So the phase of cold relations started. This is USA's aircraft carrier. Why aircraft carrier by USA is important in India-China, you will soon learn. So in 1964, just 2 years after India was humiliated in the war, and this was the same year that Nehruji passed away, nuclear test was done by China. China was now a nuclear power, and this became again a cause of concern for India. In the very next year, 1965, there was Indo-Pak war, and China not only supported them with the arms and ammunitions, but they also started threatening to open a different front at Sikkim. But then John F. Kennedy of America besought their help, and they immediately agreed to send a US Navy aircraft carrier to Bay of Bengal. But as soon as it started, China, realizing that they have trouble coming for them, they withdrew and declared ceasefire. Again in 1967, when if you study about Chinese history, the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap, that is called, which created a lot of chaos, a lot of killing in China, that kind of settled down in 1967. So they again started skirmishes at the border, especially in the Sikkim sector, where both at Nathula and Chola in 1967, two battles were fought. And in fact, India became victorious in those battles. In 1969, there was a clash with Soviets, between whom China and Soviets in 1969. And why this is important, because we have to realize that differences between China and Soviets had started to creep in, and it created space for India to align with Soviet. When 1971 war happened, and US and China, they were favoring Pakistan, of course, they pressurized India to withdraw, to not fight a war with Pakistan with that. So India, realizing that they have been isolated, they immediately signed an agreement with Soviet for military and strategic cooperation. And in 1974, India did the first nuclear bomb test. It's called Smiling Buddha. And in the very next year, 1975, Sikkim was made a full-fledged state of India. Both these incidents kind of ruffled China. In 1976, this made China to start nuclear cooperation with Pakistan, which of course took place actually in 1981, and then Pakistan also became a nuclear power. In 1987, Arunachal Pradesh was given statehood, and this again, because China lays claim to Arunachal Pradesh, this again made China very, very unhappy. So this was the whole period of cold relations and mistrust. And then the phase of cooperation started. This was a watershed moment, because this suddenly changed the dynamics of India and China relations. And how that happened? Of course, 1978, Deng Xiaoping, who had come to power in China, he is also known the father of the modern China. It's because of Deng Xiaoping's very open-minded policies and his inward-looking policies, where he focused on internal development rather than involving in skirmishes here and there and outside. So he also said that he won't support insurgency in Northeast. Of course, India does not believe that they stopped supporting, but however, it was a positive gesture. But that did not change much. Only in 1988, this historic visit by Rajiv Gandhi to China and India's promise to delink border resolution with economic cooperation, which means that earlier India always made it conditional that India will engage with China only when the border issue is resolved. But then both countries realized that border issue can be resolved in its own time, but there is an advantage in economic cooperation by both the countries pending the resolution whenever it will happen. So this phase of greater economic cooperation started. It was held as a positive example for the world, where two rival countries with unsolved border issues can cooperate economically and grow together. So this economic cooperation grew in such a way that currently India's trade with China, the total volume is $92 billion. China is right now number one trading partner of India. This trade partnership became so strong that even though in 1998 India did Pokhran, the second Pokhran nuclear test under Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji, this of course shocked China for a moment, but that shock was absorbed because of the enhanced economic cooperation. And in 1999, China assured neutrality. What happened in 1999? Kargil war between India and Pakistan. And see how this is such a marked change from Chinese stance when 1965 and 1971 they not only supported Pakistan with arms and ammunition, they also threatened to open new fronts and attack India. So it was a marked change in their stance regarding India, and this of course built confidence between the two countries. Then in 2003, in another positive measure, China virtually recognized Sikkim as part of India, and that agreement led to opening of the Nathula border after almost 4 decades in 2006, when the border trade started to happen again across Nathula border in Sikkim. In 2009, China became India's top trading partner by toppling USA. So this was a very steady and strong phase of India and China relations, where a lot of mutual understanding and cooperation happened, and the focus was on internal development of both countries, and the border relations were to be resolved on mutual agreement and adjustments. That was the understanding. But border issues flared up once in a while, and there were multiple issues once in a while which were of course resolved, except for the current issue which is happening right now in Galwan. At this point of time, I just want you to see this particular map where Tibet is shown separate from China, and you can see that virtually India and China had no border till that 1954 recognition of Tibet as part of China. There was actually no border issues between India and Tibet at that time, and we actually invited China and created border issues for ourselves by recognizing them. Now consider this Tibet as China. So the border between India and China is divided into 3 sectors. One is eastern sector, that is the Arunachal Pradesh part. One is the central sector or Sikkim sector, and then the western sector, which is entire Uttarakhand and Jammu Kashmir or Ladakh, which is currently Ladakh part. So we'll discuss it sector wise, whatever border issues have happened. We'll highlight the main events in the over the course of time. Let's talk about the eastern sector, which is Arunachal Pradesh. So eastern sector, the line that divides Tibet or Chinese Tibet and Arunachal Pradesh is called McMahon line. McMahon and not McMahon, like a lot of people confuse. So McMahon line, it was given long before Shimla Accord in 1914, but it got some official seal in 1914 through Shimla Accord, where Tibet and British India. They were the participants. China had initiated, but they did not. Initially, they had approved it, but finally they did not sign. So, although this divided the Arunachal Pradesh part from the rest of the China, the suzerainty of China over Tibet was recognized in this particular accord. But China says since 1959, that Zhao Enlai letter to Nehru, they have started saying that Arunachal Pradesh is not part of India, it is actually part of southern Tibet, and that's why it's part of China. They actually throwed in it as a bargain for Aksai Chin. In 1960, in fact, Zhao Enlai, the Chinese premier, he proposed that we will recognize Arunachal Pradesh as part of India if you recognize Aksai Chin as part of China. But of course, India did not fall for the trap. And remember that China not recognizing McMahon Line is a farce, because in the Myanmar side, where Myanmar and China share the McMahon Line, China has actually recognized the McMahon Line as the international border. In 2007, there was a staple visa issue where delegation from Government of India, including a government officer from Arunachal Pradesh, was to visit China, but then China said that he does not require visa because virtually he is a Chinese citizen, because Arunachal Pradesh is apparently part of China, and that India of course cancelled the entire trip because of this issue. And then again in 2009, when Asian Development Bank loan was sought for Arunachal Pradesh development, China opposed that no such loan can be used for a disputed territory. So India then finally arranged an internal loan for Arunachal Pradesh for that particular infrastructure project. And there have been issues of Dalai Lamas visiting Tawang, and a lot of Indian officials visiting. Whenever they visit Arunachal Pradesh, there is a ruckus created by China. Now let's look at the western sector, which is the currently flared up sector. The Johnson Line in 1860 actually had demarked the boundaries in the western sector, particularly in the Aksai Chin part. But China, of course, again giving the same reason that it was a British imperialist power which had imposed this boundary, disregarded this Johnson Line and claimed over the entire Aksai Chin part. So the peace process was initiated, and of course in 1962 we lost that part to a lot of it to China, where the LSE now exists and China has control over a large part of Aksai Chin. But since the LSE itself is not defined, there have been issues where patrolling team transgresses each other's notion of LSE. What one believes that this is my LSE, if the other party crosses it, then there is a tension created. And to solve that tension, solve that issue in an amicable way, without fighting, without firearms, the Border Peace and Tranquility Agreement and many such agreements in the course of time have been signed. And this particular BPTA in 1993 gave the legal recognition from India's side to LSE. Before that, India never recognized LSE. So LSE became recognized that year, although there is a disagreement on LSE in certain sectors, that China claims a separate LSE and India believes in a different LSE. So, and that is the reason why there have been multiple flare-ups in recent times, including Chumar, Demchok, all these names you must have heard in recent times, where there have been standoffs, military standoffs. There was Pangong So, Pangong Lake area, again now it has flared up, and of course Garvan Valley issue that is happening currently. So India India and China sat together, and there were agreements in 93, in 96, in 2013. These agreements will take a look in the next part of the lecture. But the basic outcome, basic decision in those agreements was that there will be clarification process between the two countries, where maps will be exchanged, there will be demarcation on actual physical demarcation of boundary, and there will be mutual adjustments, give and take, to settle the entire boundary. But China avoids that map exchange. They did that for the eastern sector, but for the western sector they avoided map exchange. Why? Because you see, China has this creeping forward or salami slicing policy, where they creep a bit into the neighboring countries' land, and they say that this is the new normal, and slowly they try to capture more and more land. This is their creeping forward or salami slicing policy. And imagine if they actually exchange their part of map, what they believe is the map, then there is a fixed boundary they have already created. So there won't be opportunity for salami slicing or creeping forward policy. That is why they are avoiding this particular map exchange in the western sector. And just to understand what is happening in Galwan Valley, although for UPSC exam purpose you don't need to go into details of each and every standoff because these have been happening for a long time, what you need to do is develop a broader view, a broader picture and insights into the general relations of India and China. But just for your understanding what is happening in Galwan Valley, and the credit goes to Mr. Rahul Kanwal of India Today Group, this Darbuk to Daulat Beg Oldie Road, this road infrastructure project India has completed in 2019, and this overlooks the Chinese held Aksai Chin, and this has created panic in China that now India is building its border infrastructure. So they have tried to come forward in Galwan Valley and try to capture a vantage point from where they can overlook the movements on this particular road. And then the central sector, which is more or less not that happening in terms of standoffs between India and China, but in 1967, as we discussed previously also, there was battle between armies at both Nathula and Chola, which was of course won by Indian military. Then recently Doklam issue you must have heard in 2017, when the Doklam is a plateau region which is a disputed area between Bhutan and China. And you see this in this particular picture, that green area is actually the Doklam Plateau, which is disputed, officially disputed region between both the countries, but there are other boundaries settled. But this in further south, where that red star you can see, that is where China started building their roads and try to reach a vantage point from where they can overlook this chicken neck at Siliguri of India, which becomes not only so this issue becomes not only a security concern for India, but also Bhutan's territorial integrity was violated. And you will, for your information, in 1949 there was a treaty between India and Bhutan where the foreign affairs was to be handled by India. Foreign affairs of Bhutan was to be handled by India. But in 2007, because Bhutan became a strong democracy and they started believing that they can pursue their foreign policy independently, so in 2007 this was revised, and India remained the security guarantor of Bhutan's borders. For that, India kept heavy military presence in Bhutan and also is the trainer of Bhutanese army, which is very small, 7,500. So India becomes the security guarantor, and for that responsibility also, not only for its concern regarding chicken neck, but also for its role as a security guarantor of Bhutan, India pushed China back from that area and maintained the status quo. Although some experts believe, including Brahma Chelani, that this green area, which is Doklam Plateau, there the status quo has been changed and China have built some military infrastructure there. And then overall about 2,000 square kilometer of Indian territory is claimed by China in this particular area. And sometimes what China does, although in 2003 they had tacitly agreed to Sikkim being part of India, but once in a while, whenever there is tension between the two countries, they indicate that they will change their Sikkim policy. So far we have understood about the history of India-China relations and the existing border issues in different sectors and the reasons behind them. In the next particular lecture, which is second part and last part of this lecture, we will learn many more interesting things, which is including what are the border peace processes, the Tibet story, which is a very important angle and very interesting angle of India-China relations, the string of pearls, and the reply by India, which is called necklace of diamonds. Both these interesting things we'll learn, and then we'll learn what one belt one road is and how India sees it, and finally we'll try to give insight into China's foreign policy, and we'll try to understand how China behaves and how it sees its own role in the world affairs. So thank you so much. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. Thank you so much.